of Charlie Kirk. I was so moved just to hear it between services. You're hearing something the first service didn't. First, I want you to know I'm fine, not because my body is fine, but because my soul is secure in Christ. Death is not the end, it's a promotion. Don't waste 1 second mourning me. Double down on truth. Double down on courage. Double down on your faith and on your families. That is how you honor me. So dry your tears, pick up your cross, and get back in the fight. Do it with joy, do it with strength, and never ever let evil think it won. I love you so much, church. I love you for things just like that.
He loved his church for things like that because he has demonstrated, he has gained proof, evidence that the people who follow him are so emotionally caught up into this religion and so easily persuaded by the simplest of things, by things that he know is false, things that they would actually know is false. They are so willing to accept something that they know is unreal, that they're going to continue to follow him. They're going to continue to give him their money. They're going to continue to be delusional and do whatever they tell him to do, following his lead. Of course, he is so happy to hear that, to see them clap after seeing a message that they know has never been said by Charlie Kirk. For this pastor to literally stand on stage and bear false witness, he claimed that these are the words of Charlie Kirk, that Charlie Kirk spoke after his death. Kind of like how Moses, supposedly who wrote the Pentateuch, was still talking after he died, still giving references to where he's going to be buried and where he's going to die and what happens after he died. That the same way Moses is claimed by a writer to have still been speaking, and that those were the words of Moses, is how delusional these people are to be able to sit there and say that, yes, Charlie Kirk, he said those things, that those were his words. And these people bought into it. A Christian asked me on a live last week that what would it take if there was some clear evidence that God is real, God showed up right now, would I believe it? With the way we are progressing with AI and holograms and things of that nature, hell no. You see, I use critical thinking, and I recognize that man, in all his divisiveness, could create a hologram that appeared right next to me and start speaking and saying things, because I recognize the technologies that we have now. So I want you to go back and think about this. In the time frame of Jesus, time frame of Moses, no one actually wrote a damn thing. Everything was written down, as far as the Moses character is concerned, hundreds of years later. As far as the Jesus character is concerned, decades later, almost a century later. So everything that is written down, none of it is written down at the time frame of the actual events occurring. Not one of the apostles wrote a damn thing. I can understand why historians did not write at the time frame he was alive, but you would have think a historian 30 years later, 40 years later might have said something about the Jesus character. But even 30, 40 years later, no historian says anything about Jesus. It is until the movement becomes big that somebody actually writes something about it. So they're writing about the movement and what people believe. So how would they know that what he said, what he did was actually true? Just like you watch a movie that's about an historical event, but there's a lot of Hollywood added in order for there to be a storyline. This is the case when you have with your Jesus character. A lot of Hollywood added 30 years later, 40 years later to create the storyline, claiming that Jesus told this parable or that parable or said this or did that, are all things that are added to the story in order to make it a story, because no one actually who was an eyewitness wrote anything. I mean, this is one of the reasons why you have things like Jesus flipping the tables is something that only happens in Matthew. You have stories like Jesus walking on water, which all the disciples were in a boat, but only one disciple wrote about it. No one else wrote about it. It is because this group of people was hearing this story, that group of people hearing this story, and people were just adding to it, making things up, legendizing the story. And this is what is happening with this Charlie Kirk fella, is that people are adding to the story. They're legendizing the story. At some point, 20 years from now, somebody is going to believe if Charlie Kirk is still relevant 20 years from now, but somebody's going to believe, because they are making him out to be some type of Messiah, that this message from Charlie Kirk was true, that he spoke from beyond the grave. And people are going to say that that is true. That's what really happened. When truth be told, it is not true. It is not what happened. It is not even close to anything that happened. Thankfully, today, we have technology to be able to do so. But imagine in first century, they didn't have that technology. Imagine during the time frame of Hezekiah and Josiah, they didn't have that technology. If the king said it, the people obeyed or the people died. Simple as that. Thankfully, we live in a society where people don't have a king, although they're trying to make one. But we can see that these things are fake. And yes, it's hot as hell out here in Texas right now. So, how delusional are you, Christians? Are you really going to sit up here and make this man into a martyr, make this man into a Messiah? Because that is where y'all are moving if you don't realize it. Y'all are moving in a way where you're making this man your modern day Messiah, that you're making him into some great prophet that is foretelling or foreshadowing the coming of your Jesus, because you want this Jesus to come back so bad, because you need to validate your faith. You need to validate your belief. But just like 23rd is not going to be a rapture, you really want it to be. But just like the video I published earlier today, hey, send all your money to me. I'll hold it for you while you're being raptured up. So y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.